quality, it sure matters to me.
Made in the USA.
American-made fish, it matters to me.
Now, everything that says American...
The commercial so old, O.J. Simpson was in it. Okay, that's from 1986. So ignore the O.J. part, but the stars came out in force, worked for scale. That means the lowest wage to make the Made in the USA advertising campaign. Sammy Davis Jr., Carol Channing, Don Johnson, Bob Hope, among others, trying to save American jobs back in the 80s through this promotional push. Well, now the Trump administration is trying to tear a page out of their book. Joining us now to provide fair and balanced perspective, Democratic strategist Simon Rosenberg, Fox News contributor and Republican strategist Ed Rollins, and here with us, Point View Wealth Management President and Chief Investment Strategist David Dietz. Donald Trump is coming out right now, gentlemen, and I'll begin with you, Ed. As he walks toward the podium, he attracted attention away from this great event himself. You can't blame the media. He put out a tweet, in essence saying, oh, my son took a meeting that anybody else would have taken. So is the problem not so much the media who wanted to cover this? At least we did, certainly, and we are.
The president for 6 months has stepped on his own story. He had two great meetings abroad. The G20 meeting last week, the 2.5-hour meeting with Putin was an extraordinary meeting. Should have been talked about all last weekend. It wasn't. The story that was talked about was his son-in-law. This week he had a great meeting with our oldest ally and a new brilliant leader of hopefully of Europe, the president of France. Again, stepped all over the story. We're talking about everything but those things. The president has to understand that every time he puts out a tweet, and he certainly has the prerogative to do it once in a while, it steps on a story, and he's got to drive his own message. This is a very important message today, and more than just doing a White House event. This is something we tried to do in 1985 when I was the White House political director, is you need to go across the country and say to Americans, go in your shop, buy a shirt, ask for USA. When you go out and buy a new car, ask for USA. And that has to be every single day. You can't be basically tweeting other things that distract from
Yeah, and when you go to buy a hat, ask for Stetson, because Stetson's made in the USA.
Absolutely.
Simon, it's a recurring theme here that just as there is a better event to cover, the president brings the attention back to something that is not very palatable, certainly from his perspective. But as you look at the detail of what he's doing now, he is looking through many Made in the USA products, but ahead of a budget battle, some of the parts and some of the ingredients in these companies, from Caterpillar to the candy company, they're sourced from outside of this country. So that brings up the border adjustment tax battle.
Well, there's a lot in that question, and I think that, I think it's smart for the president to be doing what he's doing this week, because there are real questions about his economic stewardship and whether he's going to be able to get through a budget this year, get through health care. We haven't even gotten to tax reform yet. And, just even today, the Republicans in the House, and Ed will understand this, they haven't even passed a budget resolution yet for this coming fiscal year. There's only a few weeks left in the fiscal year to even pass an overall budget. So I think the president is smart to try to refocus his administration on creating growth and jobs. It's where the American people want him to be spending his time. And I think he's got a lot of work to do to assure people that he's heading in the right direction.
Gotcha. David Dietz, some of these companies, from Campbell's Soup to, well, Sikorsky's used to be part of United Technologies, Caterpillar, etc. These are publicly traded names. Do they get a lift? You, as a money guy who looks at stocks all the time, from something like this event?
I think you get a short-term lift. I mean, stock investors are like anyone else in the country. They prefer to invest in what they know and trust. And if you're American-made, American-based, I think you get a slight edge. But, of course, at the end of the day, as Warren Buffett has said and Benjamin Graham, in the long run, the stock market is a weighing machine, and ultimately you've got to come through with your earnings, profits, and sales. Just because they're American, people aren't going to overlook the necessary fundamentals in order to stay invested in those companies.
Well, they're not going to overlook tax reform, right, David?
Absolutely.
And they want to see that.
Tax reform is critical. So the one positive about what's going on here is if he can rebuild his political capital, if he can get people unfocused from those tweets and back onto what he's doing right, that may help build that political momentum to bring us that much-needed tax reform.
Ed, what does he need to do to rebuild that capital?
We need more revenue. There's no question that we don't have enough revenue to do all the things Democrats want to do and all the things Republicans want to do. So you've got to somehow get the economy stimulated to increase create jobs, create more revenue. We're not going to raise any taxes, and if anything, we want to reduce taxes. So the only way you alter that to get revenue is to create a better working environment, better business environment.
Simon, in the crowd are a lot of CEOs of many made-in-the-USA companies. This is certainly a patriotic display of great products that are made here. How do the Democrats move forward in not looking obstructionist on every single thing, whether it's something like this or the health care bill? Sure. And I know the Democrats haven't even played a role in the health care draft over draft, but...
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Absolutely. Yeah. But if at some point the Dems come to the table because they're asked to,
yeah.
What will they compromise on?
Yeah, listen, I've been actually amazed with how many Democrats say every day that they really would like to be working with Trump in a more constructive way. And I think there's, you know, as I joked this morning on Twitter, I think that President Trump has spent more time with Russians than he has with Democrats in the last few months. And I think he could be doing a better job in trying to bring us into this process.